And that's when she pulled out her phone, dialing, her eyes fixed on me with a venomous glint. "You have no idea who you're messing with, farmer," she sneered, her voice dripping with the kind of condescension that could curdle milk. "This property is mine for the day. You're about to find out what happens when you cross a high-powered real estate agent." I just stood there, the sun beating down on my dusty ranch, the padlock in my hand feeling impossibly heavy, and the blare of 100 car horns starting to echo from down the road. That's when everything went wrong. Before I tell you what happened next, drop a comment. What would you do if this happened to you? And subscribe to HOA Files. Look, I'm just a simple guy. My name's Alex, and for the past 15 years, I've poured my heart and soul into the AAA ranch. It's not some sprawling cattle empire. Just a modest spread, about 50 acres nestled on the outskirts of Harmony Creek, a town that used to live up to its name. We raise alpacas, a few goats, and I run a small seasonal pumpkin patch and corn maze every fall. It's quiet, it's peaceful, and it's mine. Or at least I thought it was. Harmony Creek started changing about 5 years ago. Developers moved in, slapping up McMansions on what used to be open fields. Suddenly, my dirt road, which used to see maybe 10 cars a day, was a thoroughfare for Teslas and SUVs. And with the new houses came the Harmony Creek Estates Homeowners Association, the HOA, technically outside their jurisdiction. My property predates their existence by decades. But that didn't stop them from trying to cast their shadow. My first real run-in with them was about my fence. It's an old, weathered wooden fence, keeps the alpacas in, looks rustic. A few months after the first houses went up, I got a letter. Official-looking, embossed logo, the works. It stated, in no uncertain terms, that my fence was not in compliance with community aesthetic guidelines and needed to be replaced with approved vinyl fencing. Color white, I laughed. Seriously, I thought it was a joke. I called the number, explained I wasn't part of their HOA. The woman on the other end, who I'd later come to know as Brenda, the HOA president, was persistent. "Mr. Peterson," she'd said, her voice like a steel ruler, "your property abuts our community and its appearance impacts our property values. We strongly advise you reconsider." I politely told her where she could stick her vinyl fence, and hung up. I figured that was that. I was wrong. A few weeks later, I noticed new no trespassing signs appearing along my property line, facing my ranch. Not put up by me, obviously. They were sleek, black, with the HOA logo. I ripped them down, every single one, and tossed them in my burn barrel. Petty? Maybe satisfying? Absolutely. It was a clear line in the sand. Or so I thought. Then came the community garden incident. I have a small corner of my property, a particularly sunny spot, where I grow a few rows of corn for the maze and some extra pumpkins. One morning, I step out with my coffee, and there are 3 people, Brenda among them, cheerfully tilling my soil. They had little gardening gloves, wicker baskets, the whole 9 yards. I stood there, absolutely flabbergasted, watching them hum and chat like they owned the place. "Excuse me?" I finally managed, my voice probably a little too loud. They all jumped, startled. Brenda straightened up, a trowel in her hand, a patronizing smile on her face. "Oh, Alex. Good morning. We're just getting started on the Harmony Creek Community Garden. Isn't this wonderful?" I stared at her. "Brenda, this isn't the community garden. This is my property. My cornfield." Her smile didn't waver. "Oh, we know, dear. But it's such a perfect, unused spot, and truly, Alex, your little patch of corn isn't doing anyone any favors aesthetically. We decided to beautify it for the benefit of everyone." My jaw must have hit the dirt. "You decided? You decided to come onto my private property and start digging up my crops." "Well, it's for the community," one of the other women chimed in, as if that explained everything. I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated rage. "Get off my land, now, or I'm calling the sheriff," Brenda scoffed. "Don't be dramatic, Alex. We're just planting some lovely petunias. It's an improvement." "It's trespassing," I roared. "And if those petunias are in the ground in 5 minutes, they're getting plowed under with a tractor." They finally, reluctantly, packed up their trowels and baskets, grumbling about my unneighborly attitude. As Brenda walked away, she turned back and said, "You know, Alex, you really should consider joining the HOA. We could do so much to help you bring this place up to standard." The audacity. I just shook my head, watching them retreat, feeling a knot of dread twist in my stomach. This wasn't going to end. Things simmered down for a bit after that. A tense truce. I put up more prominent private property and no trespassing signs. Even added a few motion sensor cameras just in case. My quiet life had been infiltrated, and I felt constantly on edge, like I was waiting for the next shoe to drop, and drop it did. With a sickening thud, it was a Tuesday, a perfectly ordinary spring morning. I was out checking on the alpacas, enjoying the crisp air, and I saw a car pull up to my main gate, the one that leads to the house and barn. It was a sleek, black SUV, the kind that screams expensive. A woman stepped out, all sharp angles and perfectly coiffed blonde hair, wearing a tailored pantsuit. She looked like she'd just walked off the set of a high-stakes corporate drama. And she had a clipboard. Oh God, the clipboard. She walked right up to the gate, not bothering to open it, and rattled the chain link. "Hello," she called out, her voice surprisingly loud and imperious. "Anyone home?" "Alex Peterson." I walked over, slowly, my guard already up. "That's me. Can I help you?" She gave me a once-over, her eyes narrowing slightly as if she were evaluating a piece of property. "You must be Alex. Good. I'm Tiffany Dubois, CEO of Dubois Realty, and I'm here to finalize arrangements for tomorrow's event." I blinked. "Tomorrow's event? I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong address." "There's no event here tomorrow." She let out a short, dismissive laugh. "Oh, don't be silly." "Of course, there is. The Harmony Creek Estates exclusive spring showcase. We're hosting over 100 top-tier realtors for an immersive ranch living experience, you know, to give them a taste of the unique charm of the area before they tour the new luxury listings." She gestured expansively at my humble ranch. "This entire property has been reserved." My blood ran cold. "Reserved? By whom?" "I haven't reserved my property for anything. This is a private ranch." Tiffany's smile tightened, becoming more of a grimace. "Well, yes, darling, we know it's private. That's precisely the point. Brenda from the HOA handled all the arrangements. She assured me everything was squared away. Said you were absolutely thrilled to contribute to community enrichment." She actually used air quotes around contribute. "To community enrichment." I felt a wave of dizziness. Brenda? Of course Brenda. That woman was a mosquito buzzing around my ear, constantly trying to suck the life out of my peace. "Brenda has no authority to reserve my property for anything," I said, trying to keep my voice calm, though inside I was boiling. I never agreed to this. I never even spoke to her about it. Tiffany's face hardened. "Now look, Mr. Peterson, I'm a very busy woman. We have caterers, florists, a string quartet, for heaven's sake, all scheduled to arrive starting at 7 a.m. sharp tomorrow. 100 realtors, mind you. This is a major event." "Are you telling me Brenda lied?" "I'm telling you, I never agreed to this," I reiterated, emphasizing I. "And no one is setting foot on my property tomorrow for any showcase. Not a single realtor. Not a single caterer. Not a single string quartet." She stared at me, her mouth agape, as if I'd just suggested we sacrifice an alpaca to the HOA gods. "Are you serious? You're going to pull out on us last minute? Do you have any idea the reputational damage this will cause, Dubois Realty? The financial penalties?" "That sounds like a problem you need to take up with Brenda," I said, my voice now firm, "because it has nothing to do with me. This gate stays locked. My property is not available." Tiffany, however, was not one to be easily deterred. She puffed herself up, hands on her hips. "You know, Mr. Peterson, there are laws about implied agreements, about obstructing business. We have a signed contract with Brenda, representing the HOA for the use of this space. You might find yourself in a very difficult legal situation, then you'll find me there. Defending my property rights," I shot back. "Now, if you'll excuse me, I have work to do." I turned and started walking away, feeling her furious gaze burning into my back. "This isn't over, Alex," she shrieked after me. "Not by a long shot." I heard her slam her car door and squeal out of my driveway. I stood there for a long moment, just breathing, trying to process the sheer audacity of it all. Brenda had actually tried to rent out my ranch without my knowledge or consent to a real estate company. It was beyond anything I could have imagined. This wasn't just petty squabbles over fences anymore. This was a full-blown invasion. That night, I didn't sleep much. I checked and rechecked all my gates, making sure every chain was secure, every padlock firmly in place. I even dragged an old, rusty harrow in front of the main entrance, just as an extra deterrent. Part of me wanted to call the sheriff right then, but I decided to wait. I wanted to catch them in the act. I wanted proof. The next morning, I was up before dawn, the air still cool and quiet. I made myself a strong pot of coffee and sat on my porch, shotgun across my lap, mostly for show, but I wasn't taking any chances. As the sun began to peek over the horizon, painting the sky in soft oranges and pinks, I heard it. A faint hum at first, then growing louder. It was the sound of multiple vehicles approaching. My heart started to pound. This was it. Soon, a caravan of cars, mostly high-end sedans and SUVs, started to appear at the end of my road. They slowed, then stopped, forming a line that stretched back as far as I could see. At the front, directly facing my padlocked main gate, was Tiffany's black SUV, and next to it, even more horrifying, was Brenda's little hybrid, parked crookedly. I watched as Tiffany and Brenda emerged from their respective vehicles, both looking impeccably dressed and utterly Tiffany had a microphone headset on, like she was about to address a stadium. Brenda was clutching a tablet, occasionally pointing at it and nodding emphatically. They both walked up to my gate, Brenda actually having the nerve to try and shake the locked chain. Then Tiffany, clearly impatient, put the microphone to her lips. "Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Harmony Creek Estates exclusive spring showcase. We appreciate you all being here bright and early. Due to a minor miscommunication with the property owner, we're experiencing a slight delay in entry, but rest assured, everything is under control." She tried to laugh, but it sounded brittle. I saw the crowd of realtors, all dressed to the nines, starting to mill about, looking confused. Some were already trying to peer over my fence. I took a deep breath, grabbed my phone, and walked out directly towards the gate. Brenda saw me first, her eyes widening in surprise, then narrowing into slits of pure fury. "Alex," she hissed, "what in the blazes do you think you're doing?" "I think I'm standing on my private property." "Brenda," I replied, my voice steady, "which you attempted to rent out without my permission. To 100 realtors, no less." Tiffany spun around, her face a mask of exasperation. "Mr. Peterson, this is highly unprofessional. You're making Dubois Realty look incompetent? And you," I said, looking directly at Tiffany, "are trespassing and attempting to facilitate a mass trespass onto private property. I told you yesterday this wasn't happening." "He's being completely unreasonable, Tiffany," Brenda interjected, her voice rising in pitch. "He agreed. He implied agreement. He's just trying to extort more money." I agreed to absolutely nothing. I shot back, my patience wearing thin. "And if you don't all disperse immediately, I'm calling the sheriff." Right now, I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "He's bluffing," Brenda shrieked, turning to the crowd of realtors. "He's just a disgruntled farmer. Don't listen to him." But the realtors were starting to get uneasy. They were whispering, looking at me, then at Tiffany and Brenda, then back at the increasingly long line of cars. Tiffany, realizing the gravity of the situation, started to panic. "Mr. Peterson, please, let's be reasonable. We can offer you a substantial inconvenience fee. Think of the exposure." "My ranch isn't a billboard, Miss Dubois," I said, shaking my head. "And it's not for rent. Especially not to someone who thinks they can just take it." Just then, I heard the faint wail of a siren in the distance. I held my phone up, letting them all hear it. Brenda's face went white. Tiffany's mouth dropped open. "The sheriff is on the way," I announced. I've reported a mass trespass in progress. I suggest you all decide very quickly if you want to be here when they arrive." The realtors started to murmur louder. Some were already heading back to their cars. This wasn't the exclusive ranch living experience they signed up for. "You can't do this," Brenda screamed, stamping her foot like a petulant child. "I am the president of the HOA. I have rights." "Not on my property, you don't," I said, a grim satisfaction starting to bubble up inside me. The siren grew louder, closer. Tiffany looked absolutely distraught. "Brenda, what have you done?" she hissed, tearing off her microphone headset. "You told me this was confirmed. You had a signed agreement? I thought he'd come around," Brenda stammered, pointing a shaky finger at me. "He's always so difficult." The first sheriff's cruiser pulled up, lights flashing, followed by a second. 2 deputies emerged, their faces serious. "Morning, Alex," Deputy Miller said, recognizing me. "What's all this commotion?" "Morning, Deputy," I replied, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. "These folks here, led by Miss Dubois and Miss Harmon, are attempting to hold a commercial event on my private property without my permission." "Ms. Harmon here." I gestured to a sputtering Brenda. "Even tried to reserve my ranch through her HOA." Despite having no authority to do so, Deputy Miller turned to Tiffany and Brenda, his expression unreadable. "Is this true, ladies?" Tiffany, completely deflated, could only nod, stammering something about a misunderstanding and poor communication. Brenda, however, found her voice again. "He's lying. He's always been a troublemaker," he agreed. "He just wants to cause problems for the community." Deputy Miller raised an eyebrow at Brenda's outburst. "Ma'am, do you have any documentation? Any signed agreement from Mr. Peterson authorizing the use of his private property for this event?" Brenda fumbled with her tablet, pulling up a document. "I have a signed agreement with Dubois Realty, representing the Harmony Creek HOA," she declared triumphantly. "And the HOA clearly states he's within our influence zone." Deputy Miller took the tablet, scanned the document, and then handed it back, a small smirk playing on his lips. "Ma'am, this is an agreement between the HOA and Dubois Realty. It has no signature from Mr. Peterson in the Harmony Creek. HOA has no legal jurisdiction over Mr. Peterson's private ranch, which, as you well know, is outside your community boundaries." He looked at the long line of realtors, many of whom were now openly laughing or shaking their heads. "Looks like you've got yourselves a bit of a problem here." He then turned to the crowd of realtors. "Folks, this is private property. You are being asked to leave. If you do not, you will be considered trespassing, and we will have to take further action." That was all they needed to hear. The realtors, utterly embarrassed and frustrated, started a mass exodus. Cars began to turn around, a cacophony of engines and frustrated sighs filling the air. Tiffany Dubois looked utterly defeated, burying her face in her hands. Brenda, however, still wasn't giving up. "This is an outrage," she shrieked at the retreating cars. "You're all being manipulated by this peasant." Deputy Miller, his patience clearly at an end, stepped closer to Brenda. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to calm down. You are creating a public disturbance, and I believe Ms. Dubois here might have some serious questions for you regarding this agreement you signed." Tiffany, her voice trembling, finally looked up, her eyes blazing at Brenda. "You bet I do, Brenda. My reputation. My company. This is going to cost me a fortune." Brenda actually took a step back, suddenly looking much smaller and less formidable. The image of her so imperious just moments before, now shriveling under the weight of her own deception, was pure vindication. Deputy Miller issued Brenda a warning for disturbing the peace and advised Tiffany that she could pursue civil action against the HOA for damages, but that, for now, they needed to clear the road. He also made it clear to Brenda that any further attempts to trespass or interfere with my property would result in charges. As the last car disappeared down the road, and the deputies finished their reports, a profound sense of peace settled over the ranch. The sun was fully up now, warming my face, and the alpacas were calmly grazing in the pasture. My home, my sanctuary, was safe. The silence that followed the chaos was sweeter than any music. Later that week, I heard through the grapevine that Brenda had been formally removed as HOA president, facing a potential lawsuit from Dubois Realty and the wrath of her own community. Turns out, trying to rent out someone else's property for 100 realtors doesn't sit well with paying homeowners. What a long, strange trip it had been. From a quiet rancher, I'd been forced into the role of a defender of my domain. It taught me a valuable lesson. Stand your ground, know your rights, and don't let anyone, no matter how entitled or loud, tell you what you can and can't do on your own property. Harmony Creek is still Harmony Creek, with its fancy houses and its demanding HOA. But for now, the Triple A Ranch remains my peaceful haven. Though I have a feeling this isn't the last I've heard from the HOA, even without Brenda at the helm. There's always another battle on the horizon,